So when the naturalistic and the realistic movements were at their peak, it generated a lot of criticisms. Critics felt that realistic productions make the audience lose themselves on what was happening on stage. So, and because of that, they felt that the audience was not properly absorbing the themes and messages that play was throwing back at them. So one of those critics was influential practitioner Bertolt Brecht, a German playwright and director. So Brecht, he felt that theater should truly generate change and in society. And to truly generate change, it needed, or the theater needs, to have the audience detach, emotionally detach from what's happening on stage. So that way they will actually start thinking and absorbing the message and ideas that are being thrown back at them. So in order to do that, he developed the what it's called the alienation effect. So this is just alienating emotionally the audience from what's happening on stage. That way we would have a more objective view, a more detached view of what's happening there, and we would actually think. So he worked on creating several devices. Usually these are called Brechtian devices. So he created a lot of non-naturalistic techniques, non-naturalistic devices. These are just a few to give you an idea. So he liked to use minimum sets and costume once again to keep the audience from getting too involved or from truly believing that what was happening on stage was real. So he liked to break the fourth wall to remind the audience that they're actually on stage, on a theater. So remember that the fourth wall is that imaginary wall that separates the audience and the actors on stage from each other. So because of that, he liked to use narrators. So remember that narrators, they speak to the audience, directly to the audience, and they comment on the action or on ideas. So you can imagine yourself in the theater getting too involved on something you're watching on the play, and suddenly something interrupts you, and a narrator comes and starts speaking to you. So that makes you wake up and reminds you you're in a theater and makes you think about what is happening. So he also liked to use underdeveloped characters. So this is basically social stereotypes. So for instance, he could use a fat boss smoking a cigar, talking to his employees who are really skinny and hungry and hard workers. So to give you an idea and portray a visual message and a social message at the same time. He also may use what he called split roles. So split role just means that several actors would actually play the same character the same night in the same production. So for instance, if let's imagine Macbeth, and I could use I don't know, a skinny kind of weak character or weak person to portray the lovely, tender, and fragile Macbeth, when he's in scenes with his wife. But then I could use a very strong guy to portray the Macbeth the warrior, or the murderous Macbeth. So that way the audience once again is reminded that this is just a play and I'm in the theater, but it also helps convey and exaggerate certain messages. He also liked to use nonlinear structures. So this means it's not linear in time. So we would be in the present and he would jump to the past or to the future. That way he would build on an idea or on a message he's trying to portray, but also, once again, reminds the audience that this is just a play, that is not real. And then he also worked on something called gestus. So gestus, as the word implies, refers to a gesture, but it's a type of gesture that implies a social message. So for instance, if we have a soldier saluting, that's a gesture. But then if we have a soldier on stage surrounded with dead bodies saluting to the audience, that already visually portrays a social message and shocks the audience. Also, another key thing to mention is that epic theater is a very good style if you're thinking about a play that has a very strong social or political message because of this alienation effect. It makes people think. So it can truly generate change.